Hi everyone, welcome to our webinar from CSART. So it's really making me happy to see all of you here. So I try to follow the comments. There are a lot of people from all over around the world. So thank you for attending, and I don't want to lose too much time because I have a very limited time and try to explain a lot of things in this limited time. That's why I'm going to jump into the topic. So let's start a little bit about myself. So I'm Suha Selçuk, and today I am delighted to present this topic, Systemic Approach to Scrum webinar. And let me take a few minutes to share a little bit about my background with you. I'm a registered Scrum at Scale trainer, and also I'm a registered Scrum trainer by Scrumming. And my first experience with Scrum was back in 2009. At those times, Sony was implementing a big enterprise Scrum transformation, agile transformation, and that inspired me to continue my career as an agile coach and trainer. Since then, I have delivered agile and Scrum training to more than 1,500 people. So, and in 2016, I guess, yes, in 2016, I founded the T4A company, which is dedicated to providing agile transformation consultancy and training services. And later, I have had the chance and pleasure to work with biggest companies, including BSH Home Appliances, Allianz Insurance, and, for example, Garanti BBVA Technology. And also, I have a book called Failure Stories. It's a kind of retrospective of agile transformation journeys, and I tried to give some tips for effective transformations. Unfortunately, it's written in Turkish, and now I've been working on my second book, which is in English. I like to share my experiences, and I'm passionate about it, and I've been invited to events and meetups, and I mean, I have spoken almost 50 at almost 50 meetups and events. So today I am excited to share my insights with you to explore the systemic approach to Scrum. And my main objective for this session is to validate some common mental models using systems thinking. And by doing so, my aim is to uncover more effective ways of approaching Scrum and Agile practices during our product development processes and implementing Scrum in our organizations. So to do this, we will be diving into some practical examples, and with that examples, I will try to demonstrate the power of the systems thinking in action. And at the end of this presentation or this session, I hope you will leave with a new angle and some queries to deepen your knowledge about Scrum and understanding this systemic approach to Scrum. So let's continue. First of all, I would like to take a few minutes to discuss the important concepts, which is the heart of our webinar today, system. So please think about your moments that you stopped and to think about the different systems that cross your mind every single day. For example, I have my own list. I generally think about the organizations that I consult, my family, our consultancy company, CSART, the country I live in and the country I was born in, and nowadays they are dealing with the elections. So I think that part a lot nowadays. And the planet, of course. So these are all systems, and these are all big systems. So when we talk about the systems thinking, what exactly is systems thinking? It is simply thinking of things as systems. A system is a set of entities, interrelated entities that perform a function, and its functionality is greater than the sum of the parts. So every system has entities, relationships among them, and elements and connections. In a systems thinking perspective or mindset, we can easily or more easily understand the complexity and come up with better solutions to address the challenge we encounter. When it comes to Scrum and Agile practices, systems thinking allow us to highlight or to spot the hidden problems and fine-tune our processes in order to get improve the outcome or improve the results. So let me give you an example to understand deeply this concept, this system. So here at the screen you can see two entities, sand and a funnel. So if we create a relationship by placing the sand inside the funnel, we have a new mechanical system, an hourglass. A new function emerges from this mechanical system, keeping time. So a new function arises with the interaction of two components. So we call this emergence. And this is more than the function of the funnel and sand. So this emergent behavior is not dictated, or nobody explicitly forces this system to have this emergency, this behavior. Instead, it arises naturally from the interactions between the sand's particles and the funnel. So the simple rule for governing these interactions, the natural rule that governs these interactions, makes them arise to a more complex, organized behavior at the system level. So this concept, emergence, is really important in systems thinking. And here we have entities. There are entities. The entities are interrelated, and the entities and the relationships between these entities enable a function. And the function is more powerful than the sum of the function of the parts. This is magic, and this last point is called emergence in systems thinking. And it provides both the magical power and at the same time the challenge to deal with the systems. So when we turn the hourglass over, the sand particles begin to flow from top to the bottom. So passing through the narrow opening here, the narrow opening which is in the middle of the funnel. So as they do so, as they flow, they interact with each other. So they rearrange themselves in the response to the funnel's shape and also to the gravity of the funnel. So, in systems thinking, structure plays an important and significant role in influencing the behavior of a system. So the shape and the other properties of individual components, the form of the individual components can affect how they interact with one another, and also shaping the overall behavior of the system. So this means when you think about the social systems, it doesn't really make sense to blame any part of the system, including the individuals. So the shape and the size of the sound particles in our example, as well as the stickiness, can directly and greatly impact the way they flow within the funnel. So the structure or the form of the funnel itself, such as the length of the opening, the size of the sands, and also the number or the size of the sands directly impacts on the behavior of the system. And also it has an impact on the connection and the relations between the components. So I can imagine that some of you may think, okay, so you are giving an mechanical type of example, but we are working in a social system, and we have some social connections, so there's totally difference because we have the human side. So I will talk about that. But before that, it is important to note the systems, this distinction between the systems thinking and the systematical thinking. So the term systematically means working according to a plan, a fixed plan, a system, or a methodology. And systematic thinking is how to think methodically. So on the other hand, the systems thinking focuses on viewing things as interconnected systems made from the interrelated entities together to achieve functionality. And as I said before, that functionality is greater than the sum of the individual parts. So I just remember we had to also mention about the purpose of the systems. This is how we distinguish the heap from the systems. I mean, every system has a purpose, and they have a goal to be done, to be achieved. So without the purpose, you don't have systems. That's why it is important to note that, because we will talk about this again later when we come to Scrum context. So let's talk about Scrum. After briefly defining, and let me check my time schedule. Okay, we're on time. So systems thinking in the Scrum context means thinking of the Scrum framework and its components as a system. So after understanding the aspects of the systemic approach to Scrum, we will go over to an example to validate a common mental model in the Scrum context. And but before that, we have to understand how we can approach Scrum systemically. So that's why we need to find the corresponding terms that we already spoke in the mechanical system, how they correspond in the Scrum context. So the Scrum team has product backlog, sprint backlog, and the product increments, and these are the entities. I mean the 353, excuse me, 3 rows, 5 events, and 3 artifacts that we call the 353 system in Scrum, includes the components of the system. These are the components. If you think a Scrum framework itself as a system, these are the components of the system. So when they come together, they perform a function, and this functionality is greater than the sum of these parts. So it is important to become a systems thinker in Scrum, because the Scrum teams are becoming more complex and interrelated as the time passes. Because we ask more of it. I mean, we ask more functionality, more performance, more reliability. So these are the things that makes the Scrum teams more complex as the time passes. So it makes Scrum more challenging to operate efficiently. So system thinking helps to make the complex process appear simple and allow us to expand the scope of the problem until we find a solution for that. So in Scrum, we should understand the emergence also. We had already talked about the emergence in systems thinking. That's why in Scrum, it corresponds to creating value. The purpose in Scrum is to create more value, deliver a high quality product. That's why we should understand this emergent property to deliver value to customers. So all these entities in Scrum, I mean 3 roles, 5 events, and 3 artifacts, have a relation with each other. So to summarize, becoming a systems thinker in Scrum context means thinking of these relations, thinking of the Scrum and its components as a system, to understand the emergence in the system, and to understand the Scrum aspects to solve complex problems in Scrum. And we will do a practical example to do that. So relations, the Scrum framework involves several entities. I'm regularly checking my time, because I want to spare some time for the exercise, practical exercise. So the Scrum framework involves some entities, as I mentioned before. For example, the product owner, Scrum Master, the development team, and each entity has its own function and responsibility that contributes to the success of the team. That's why you can implement Scrum as a whole. I mean, you cannot partially implement Scrum. For example, why do we have only one product owner in Scrum? If we have multiple product owners, whose priorities will be followed by the team? So the relations between the developers and the product backlog and the product owner will suffer. So these rules and the entire framework, Scrum framework, aims to create value. That's why it creates an environment that all the entities work together in order to perform that functionality to create value. So in a Scrum team, emergence is the result of the collaboration among the team members, where they share knowledge, their skills, and ideas to develop highly qualified products, and not only develop, and also to deliver. So the structure of the Scrum team directly enhances the value of the value that's created. So the structure promotes transparency, inspection, and adaptation that allows the team swarm together and focus on their goals and create value. The structure of a Scrum team is really a critical factor in enhancing the outcome of the team. So the effective interaction among the team members results with the better collaboration, increased productivity, and improved quality. So while speaking about the structure, we need to mention a few more things. In the context of Scrum, the structure of the teams really plays an important role, because if you have, that's why, by the way, we have this rule, the Scrum team cannot exceed 10 person. Why we have? Because the framework itself tries to force or encourage the implementation with small teams. Why is that? Because small teams, we know that, can communicate easily and can collaborate easily. That's why it improves the productivity. That's why the structure of the team plays a critical role in enhancing the outcome and creating value. And the structure also enables the effective interaction among the team members. So in Scrum, we have important characteristics that directly influences the structure, like the length of the sprints. We have short sprints because we have an iterative and incremental approach, and transparency, inspection, and adaptation is really important in Scrum. That's why the Scrum is established among that three pillars. And the Scrum team is self-managed, cross-functional, and we don't have sub-teams and hierarchies in Scrum. That means these characteristical aspects constructs the structure of the Scrum teams. That's why these structural elements directly influences the behavior of the Scrum team members also. So we need to talk a little about policy resistance, because we need to understand how it occurs and how to avoid from it. That's why it's important. And policy resistance is very common happening in systemic systems thinking, and also in system dynamics. It's more often used and to understand the situation. So it occurs when a policy intended to improve a situation actually makes it worse. So this happens because the policy only addresses one part of the system and fails to consider the wider effects on the whole system. So in other words, let me give you an example to explain this concept. It's like trying to fix a leaky pipe without turning off the water supply. So firstly, you should turn off the water supply, and then you should fix the leaky pipe. So it's similar to that. And the Hydra, a mythological creature from Greek mythology, serve as a fitting example or metaphor to explain this phenomenon, because in the myth, the Hydra is a snake, a multi-headed snake, and when you cut one of its head, two or more would grow back in its place. So this makes this creature increasingly and unbelievably difficult to defeat, and as each attempt to eliminate a hat only resulted in the emergence of more hats. So policy resistance is very similar to that. And policy resistance can occur for many reasons, such as implementing poor policies or not having enough support, or it can also happen because the policy is implemented too quickly as a quick fix, or without considering the whole system and ignoring the feedback mechanisms in the system. Therefore, it is important to understand the feedback loops in the systems, and we need to carefully consider the policies and their potential impacts. By taking a systemic approach, we can identify the underlying causes of the problems. So we need to design the policies that addresses the root causes rather than just the symptoms. So this is really important, and we will try to do that with our example. And before jumping into example, or before talking about the methods that we will use during our example, I would like to underline this, and it's no need to blame any framework, any method, since you blindly try to apply it. Trying to implement one thing blindly by the book doesn't mean anything. So you need to understand the logic behind it, and if you don't understand the logic, and if you don't understand the main idea behind it, it doesn't make any sense to implement by the book. So let's continue. Okay, today I'm going to use causal loop diagrams that I think they're really useful in systems thinking. And I know, and most probably some folks from the area of systems thinking will say, okay, so it is not the just tool that is used in the systems thinking. And I know the systems thinking area is so huge. There are a lot of methods and any individual can learn in lifetime, so it is really huge. And there are a lot of different methods, but excuse me, I find the causal loop diagrams really useful, and I just wanted to start with this method, and later I plan to do some other webinars to explain the other methods and to do some samples in the Scrum context with them. So, by the way, I highly recommend checking out this book that you see on your screen at the left-hand bottom side. So, The Business Dynamics by John Stearman, and it is really an excellent resource. And I have this one copy at my desk all the time. I don't know if you can see. Okay. It's an, as I said, excellent resource, and it offers in-depth knowledge on systems thinking, including these causal loop diagrams. So these diagrams use variables to show how things in a system are related through cause and effect. So this diagram helps us to use and to see the connections between different parts of the system and how change in one area can affect other areas. Causal loop diagrams also let us see how the delays and feedback loops impact the system behavior. So the arrow link between the variables reflect the causation, not correlation. So this is important. We are not trying to identify the correlations between the variables. We are just trying to identify the causations. This is important. And the diagram also doesn't show actually what is happening in the system. This is not about that. I mean, when you see a arrow link between two variables, that doesn't mean actually one is increasing or decreasing. And arrow with positive sign means if you increase the cause, the affected variable will increase above what it would otherwise have been. Okay, if you increase one thing, how the other thing changes. So it just shows that. And one note, an important note to remember, all models are wrong and some of them are useful. So no model can perfectly present the or represent the reality. So many of them will provide some insights and some valuable insights and help guide our decision-making processes, but none of them are complete or 100% true. So the last thing before the exercise, mental models. Mental models are basically the beliefs and the assumptions that we have about the world, about our team and ourselves or anything else. So it is just a belief. So the mental models can be really helpful when we are trying to make sense of a complex situation, and also can be an impediment in our way to see things in a different way, from a different angle, or to make the change happen. So it can be an also barrier to that. All right, now folks, we are gonna take a look at a common mental model in Scrum contexts and see if that mental model hold up, and we will dig in and see if that mental model is correct or not. So I hope we will gain some new insights along the way. So let's start. Here is the mental models. Can the use of effective facilitation techniques help resolve the issue of team members' lack of active participation or feedback during the retrospective? So, all right, do you think this mental model is something that's commonly held within the Scrum community? What do you think about it? You can just write your answers into the comments, so I will try to follow it. To me, I received and have been also receiving a lot of questions about that. Some of the Agile coaches and Scrum Masters keep coming to me and ask the same question. Okay, so we are trying to increase the rate of engagement in the retrospectives, but we are not able to do that because the team members generally don't want to participate, and it's really hard to make them speak during these retrospectives. That's why please tell us some facilitation techniques or icebreakers to make them participate this event. And whenever they ask these questions repeatedly, I always give the same answer. So there is no recipe. So you need to identify the root causes of the problem, but sometimes they don't satisfy with my answer. But now I'm gonna explain why I generally give that answer to that question. So now, okay. So let's say we are trying to get our team to be more active and give more feedback during our retrospectives. So we might think that using some effective facilitation techniques could be the solution. However, from a policy resistance perspective that we spoke a few minutes ago, we need to be careful because uh, we may face some unintended results. So we know that from the topic of the policy resistance. So that's why we need to be careful. And that's what happens. You can see on your screen. Initially, it may have positive effects, and afterwards, it goes worse. So when you introduce the new facilitation technique and icebreaker, etc., whatever else, so at the first sprint, you can just make the engagement rate rise, but within the upcoming sprints, it will decrease because there are some other reasons. There may be some other reasons that you didn't consider. So now let's use causal loop diagrams to model this and validate our mental model. So here we go. By the way, can you see my cursor? I'm not sure. Let me check from, okay. Most probably you can't see my cursor. That's why I'm struggling. Maybe I can use this one here. Okay. Let me check if you can see. I don't know. Okay. Anyway, so this is one technical issue that, oh yeah, you can see. Okay. Here is here is the causal loop diagram that we talked earlier to the mental model about increasing the engagement rate in retrospective. Does it depends on just facilitation and what generally the agile coaches look for, or do we have other variables about that? So the first thing is we need to think about the engagement ratio. So because we started with that assumption, our main purpose is to increase the engagement ratio. That's why we need to start from here. And then we need to think about what increases the engagement ratio. So the first thing is motivation. If the motivation of the individuals in the Scrum team increases, that will lead a rise in the engagement ratio because motivated people will tend to attend and participate more during the retrospectives. That's why the second variable is motivation. And what increases the motivation? We need to now think about this. If you have taken some past Kaizen actions, and if the team saw the results of the Kaizen actions that are taken previously, so they will believe in more, and this will increase the motivation of the team members. That's why I put here another variable and draw an arrow and put a positive sign to the motivation. That means if you increase the past actions, it will definitely increase the motivation of the team. And correspondingly, if the team collaboration increases, the past Kaizen actions will increase. That's why we need to put here another arrow with positive sign. So here, engagement ratio as the engagement ratio increases, the team collaboration will increase. Now we have identified here a positive, or in other words, a reinforcing loop. That means if you increase one of these variables, that will cause an increase in the engagement ratio. So I put here an R with this sign to indicate that this is a reinforcing loop. So we need to think about, excuse me, other factors that affect the motivation. For example, fear. If there is a fear, or if the amount of the fear increases, that will reduce significantly the motivation. That's why there is a negative causal relation between fear and motivation. That's why I put a negative sign at the end of the arrow link. And what increases the fear? Sense of control and external pressure. That's why here we identified the causal relations between pressure, fear, and motivation. So it means if you increase the external pressure into the team, so it will definitely increase the fear of whatever else. For example, fear of failure, fear of being having a bad performance, whatever else. That will significantly again reduce the motivation, and the reduction in the motivation will cause another reduction in the engagement ratio of the retrospectives. So is that all? No, we have some other effects that directly affect the motivation. One of them is the communication efficiency. So if the team members communicate efficiently, this will increase the motivation. But I put here a delay. By the way, let me remind you, no model is perfect and no model is complete. That's why this is just an example, and you can basically do better than me. And it is also better to do these things with the group of people, with your team, because it will create better results to do this exercise or this method with your team. And I strongly encourage to all of the Agile Coach Scrum Masters or team members, doesn't make any sense, whatever else your role, doesn't matter. I encourage everyone to do this with your teams, Scrum teams. So again, turning back to the diagram, here I put a delay because the increase or decrease in the communication efficiency will result with another increase in the motivation, but it will take some time. That's why there's a delay between these causal relations between these two variables. And also team size here has an impact on the communication efficiency, because as the number of the team members grow, the efficiency of communication will directly reduce, and this will because the number of communication paths will increase, and the sense of feeling like a team will reduce. That means the efficiency of communication will reduce. That's why again, it will cause a reduction in the motivation in the long run. And also, as the team gets bigger, the facilitation will suffer as well. That's because it's harder to facilitate a big size group than a smaller one. That's why there's a negative causal relation between the team size and the facilitation also. And another factor that affects the communication efficiency is team stability. And please notice, team stability and team size corresponds to the structure of the Scrum team in systems thinking. And please also consider the huge effect of the structure on the behavior of the entire system. That's why if you have the chance to change the structure, you will have a big impact on the team if it is needed, of course. I mean, if you have a small team, you don't need to change it. That's different thing. So, and team stability also affects here the team collaboration, because if you change the team members frequently, the collaboration will suffer from this instability. That's why we need to have stable teams. And also, we need to think about the factors that affect the post-Kaizen actions. For example, multitasking. If your team stuck in multitasking, that will definitely reduce the execution, and the number of the Kaizen, post-Kaizen actions will reduce in the long run. Maybe it will be better to put a delay here. So impediment lists, on the other hand, will have a positive impact on the post-Kaizen actions, and also receiving feedback from team members or from the stakeholders will increase the impediment lists or the items that are waiting in the impediment list. That's why there is a positive causal relationship between the impediment lists and the feedback. And also, the post-Kaizen actions will have a positive impact on feedback, because if you deliver something or if you execute, you can get feedback. That's why there is a causal relation to get feedback from your actions. And nearly we went through all of them. Before that, I want to change the comments rapidly. So, okay. Yeah, 10 people is a recommendation, not a rule. That's written in the Scrum guide. You shouldn't, yeah, as a recommendation. But, okay. One thing maybe after checking out the comments, one thing will be better to mention here. So how we decide the team size will affect the communication efficiency negatively. So you can just check out the Scrum patterns that are listed as a book, in a Scrum book by James Coplin and Jeff Sutherland, and the Scrum Club community also. So, and it is most of the parts of that book is open book, and you can reach it scrumbook.org. So I would highly recommend to check out that, how the big teams affect the Scrum team's productivity, or stable teams can increase the productivity, how and what are the patterns. So these are the things that you can find from them. That's why no need to reinvent the wheel again and again. We have some data coming from the Scrum patterns work, which is, for me, is the most influential, one of the most influential works in the Scrum world. So let's continue. So this sample provided a new lens. So again, my aim is not to prove the mental model. So my aim is just to create a question mark in your mind, and also make you to provide some insights to see the big picture, or to be aware of the big picture, to be aware of the entire system. So that's why, I mean, I'm not saying that my model is 100% is correct, and it's not possible for any model, by the way. So many problems have multiple and indirect causes. So this is the message to the that I want to give. So there are I mean, if you look from the angle or event-oriented angle to the situation, so you just see one cause and one effect. So that's not the case. There are multiple indirect and dynamic causes that you need to identify and you need to think about before taking a decision. That's why quick fix solutions only addresses the symptoms or surface level issue without creating a lasting systemic change. So that's the important thing. You create a temporary solution for just one issue, and in the long run you face more issues with the same problem. It corresponds to the policy resistance. So it is important, that's why, to take a more holistic approach and systems thinking approach if you want to create a meaningful and lasting solutions to the challenge we face while implementing Scrum. And lastly, I want to talk about the 11 laws of systems thinking. These laws are extracted from the famous book, The Fifth Discipline by Peter Senge, and they're really important. For example, we see that yesterday's solutions often create today's problem, and that pushing harder can actually make things worse. And small changes can have big impacts. So these are the old things, and one another. For example, faster is slower. So I highly again recommend this book, to check out this book, The Fifth Discipline by Peter Senge. This book provides an excellent introduction to systems thinking and explores how we can use it to address complex problems. So thanks for attending today. Most probably I'm on time. Yes, I'm checking. Yes. Please just leave a comment about the webinar, and if you have any concerns, and if you want another topic from me to talk about it later. And please don't hesitate to contact me directly via LinkedIn. Thanks for watching.